All right, what's up, guys? Happy Monday. Welcome to another Monday Moffcast. You know what? I almost didn't do a show today. Been busy, got a lot of stuff, was on the road this past weekend, hanging with some Brotherhood members down in Dallas and having a good time and seeing the bros. And every now and then you see a headline that just pisses you off. Screen on Twitter, I think it was, or maybe it was on Instagram. And I wanted to kind of talk about this killing that just happened a couple weeks ago. And it has nothing to do with the fact that it was near me. It's like I live in Tampa. This happened, maybe like a half hour over. And this is just meant to be. I'm going to give my own take on this. I'm going to give my own spin on this. I'm going to kind of take you guys through the article. And I know this is going to be unpopular. And obviously, you guys have been around long enough to know that I don't care. And there's a couple reasons that this caught my eye or caught, you know, my attention. And so we're just going to kind of go through it together here. So I should be able to share my screen here. Let me add that to the stage and we'll just go through it together. So, and excuse the ads, you guys, these modern publications and their advertising, you can't even read anything, but I've got to go through it, paragraph by paragraph, line by line, at least the things that I think are relevant here. So Florida mom of 3 killed by husband over NFL game, died a year. Now my first reaction is, this is why you avoid men who are super fans. This is why you don't like the super fan, the obsession with sports, the obsession with this vicarious relationship or parasocial relationship with players in a team in an organization that doesn't care about you, doesn't know who you are, sees you as nothing but a consumer. But it actually gets much worse than that. And this is not just a guy that's mad about, losing a game or whatever it is. So as a single mom, that's the first line. Single mom, Christopher was fiercely protective of her children. When she started dating a handsome man from church, just meet him at church, guys. Just go to church, meet a nice guy, meet a nice girl. And I know I'm going to catch shit for that, and I don't care. Crystal didn't introduce him right away. In fact, she waited until they had dated for a full year before he met the kids. On paper, that's smart. There's some women out there that want to meet the kids right away. There's some women out there that are looking for a dad to step up, right, rather than a stepdad, or come right away. That are looking to be saved and that sort of thing. And what's interesting, there's things that are kind of popping up that are just not telling the whole story. And one of them being that the person that he interviewed for the story was her sister. So Crystal's sister, Stephanie Rohr, said she took her time. She had a happy glow that I haven't seen in a long time. My sister trusted him and fell in love with him. She finally found her happy ever after. Now, I think that in another article I read that, this girl was kind of like, on this guy and wasn't quite sure, but, whatever. Her sister knew best, right? There's no interviews of parents. There's no interviews of other relatives. Maybe they're not around. Maybe they passed away. Maybe they weren't available for comment. We just don't know. But on December 22nd, 2 years after Crystal married Jason Kenny, he would end up killing her and shooting her 13-year-old daughter in the face in their Florida home, all over an argument of watching a football game 3 days before Christmas, according to the sheriffs of Polk County. 13-year-old girl begged not to be shot. Again, shot her twice. We don't have to go through this. This is so as we learn more about her background. From an early age, Crystal showed ambition and a commitment to hard work. Her sister, Stephanie, recalled how she did well in school and thrived when she got her first job at TGI Fridays as a teenager, going from hostess to server. Again, not knocking anybody that's in the restaurant business, but it's like, you're a fucking waitress. Like, I did that stuff. What do you mean you thrive? Whatever. What set her apart from experience, she didn't work for a paycheck. She worked for the experience. Okay, whatever. It doesn't matter. When she became a mom at the age of 25, everything she did from that moment on was for her children. Okay, no problem. Another grave omission, or like an obvious omission, is there's no mention this entire article of the child's father. And there's no mention of it. I tried to go do a little bit of digging on it, whether there was a first husband involved, but I think this guy, Jason Kenny, was this woman's second husband. So it was not the original, of the child. We'll keep going. But she became a mom at the age of 25. They say as if like babies just fall out of the sky and this was like an immaculate conception and the stork just dropped the baby off like, oh, here's your baby. It's This is why you don't hate the media enough, right? As you'll see, they're painting this entire story of this woman who, died a hero, as they speak. And again, I'm just going to call it like I see it. There's not any dancing on anybody's grave here. We're not going to, make fun of somebody that's no longer around, but there's plenty of cautionary tales and there's plenty of things that we can learn from these instances if people would just stop being so sensationalist and you would actually ask questions and read between the lines and think critically about this kind of shit. Though Crystal had to juggle work with the kids all while being single, she didn't miss a school function, award ceremony, or field trip. She also managed to buy a house all on her own because she was a smart woman. Like, cool. Sweet. Good for you. Bought a house, worked hard, loved your kids, all fine. Again, no mention of a husband, no mention of what happened to the original dad, no mention at all of this guy's role or what happened. They almost make it sound like she got pregnant via a one-night stand, that she just made a dumb decision and she got pregnant and the guy bailed on her, which I don't think is the case. I think if you think critically about this entire article is propping her up as this hero and how amazing she was. You know what happens when people die. She's so amazing. She was God's gift to earth. She was the greatest human being that ever, every person that's ever died was the greatest person that's ever lived, right? Like, we know this. Everybody that's ever died was objectively an angel. Like, nobody's ever passed away or died and people have been like, yeah, that dude was kind of a piece of shit, right? Like, that dude kind of sucked. He was amazing. She lit up the room when she walked in, right? All the things that we know. No mention of that. So if she had gotten, knocked up or left by a guy, or he had treated her poorly or left her for broke or whatever, there would be, I think somebody would have said something. They would have brought that up. There would have been note of that here because, again, this whole article is basically a fluff piece. Again, you'll get to the rest of it. Didn't miss a field trip. Her children were her world. She worked hard for them, provided for them. She protected them. They came first before anything. Yes, classic single mother. My children are my world. They come before anything. And fine. I'm not saying they don't have to. I'm not saying not to do that. Right? Again, I wish I knew what happened. Maybe we'll find out more. Probably not. When Crystal married Kenny, she lost the glow. Early in the relationship, Facebook photos showed the pair smiling and kissing each other in many selfies. Others show them and the kids looking like a picture-perfect family posing in front of a Christmas tree at a baseball game, right? Okay, great. She married the dad that stepped up. All's fine, blah, blah, blah. All good. Sometime after they married on November 4th, 2023, my sister lost that glow she had. At first, her sister chalked up the change that Crystal had become pregnant with her third child pretty quickly after the wedding. I don't know how quickly. Maybe it's probably weeks. And she says, I remember asking her, are you okay? And Crystal replied, yes, it's just his pregnancy was really kicking her butt because she was much older. I think at the time, did they say how old she was? I think that she was in her late 30s when she was killed. So I'm guessing this was much, much later, obviously. Though Stephanie, here's the part about the sister. Though Stephanie said she always had an feeling about Kenny, she thought her sister was happy and safe. So there's a couple ways you can look at this. There's like the biological response that women have, this sort of sixth sense about sensing danger and fight or flight and being able to read between the lines that can be clouded by judgment, like because this guy's fulfilling, this is happy. So you could say like her sister was jealous, or maybe she was actually on the right track. It looks like in this case, she was probably on the right track. But this is why it's important for women to have solid social systems and checks and balances around them, specifically family. And ideally it's the father, or it's an older brother, or it's an uncle, or it's a male influence, just because, if every woman dated how their girl best friend or their sister or their aunt or her mother, whoever, told them to date, like, it would be chaos. It would just be a disaster. I think that's part of the reason that we're in the predicament that we're in. There's so many women that are growing up being told by their moms, don't marry a man for this, don't ever settle, blah, 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 because those women, chose poorly and they refuse to take accountability for their choices and things like that. Then she got the worst phone call of her life. Crystal and her 3 kids spent the evening of December 22nd by the Christmas tree in their home. Kenny was in his shed drinking and watching Monday Night Football until 11 p.m. So we know this guy is a big football fan. We know he's a drinker. And we know that he has his own personal shed where this takes place. Maybe it's his man cave, I guess, or maybe it's his, who knows? again, we can't pass any, all we could do is speculate at this point. Maybe he wanted to have, maybe he didn't like her and he wanted to have a place all on his own. Maybe he was just a POS and he got violent when he drank, as we'll see by the remainder of this article. And he had a problem. And she said, hey, you're going to have to go out and do that shit in the shed. I don't want you around. But who knows what it could have been. But anytime it's like, yeah, this guy had a shed out back where he drinks and watches football, it doesn't necessarily seem like a well-adjusted individual, in my humble and unprofessional opinion. When Kenny went inside the home and wanted to continue watching the game, a fight ensued. It became so scary that Crystal told her 12-year-old son to run to a neighbor's house and call 911. As the boy ran out, he heard the first gunshot. Responding deputies found Crystal dead inside with her 13-year-old daughter shot and she's not dead. The 13-year-old survived with bullet. I don't want to say like shot. Saying shot in the face is like so barbaric. Shot in the face and shoulder, and Jason Kinney gone. They also found a letter Crystal wrote to her husband saying, "You're drinking, you're using cocaine again. This is not the way family should be. You need God." So we've got a dude who drinks too much, does cocaine, violent streak, football. I mean, at what point you're using, first of all, using cocaine again? Not a first-time user here. Repeat offender. Let's pause and talk about this thing for a second, right? So I'm actually want to get to this next paragraph. The 1-year-old daughter that the couple shared was unharmed. So if you guys aren't aware of this already, there's a phenomenon called the Cinderella effect. There's statistics and data out there that suggest that, doesn't suggest, it really points to this almost as a foregone conclusion, that it's stepfathers and step parents, because not just stepfathers, but in this case, we'll talk about stepfathers. Stepfathers are far more likely to abuse and or kill or otherwise commit violence against non-biological children in the home than fathers are to commit against their actual biological children. Evo Psych scientists and folks have said this is the Cinderella effect, which basically means without strong ties to the children, they miss out on that natural protector need to provide that you would for your own children. So notice how the 1-year-old baby is actually unharmed when the other daughter that he didn't father was killed. Now, you could say this is just a coincidence. It's like, oh, why would this man kill a baby? That would make him a monster. Well, actually, the younger the child, the more likely they are to suffer at the hands of an abusive stepfather. So I think there's still bearing here where it's like, well, his child, even, so say what you will about that. But in any case, this is absolutely a woman that chose terribly and chose poorly. We can't skirt around this. You just can't. Violent, drinking, cocaine addict, bringing into a house where you have 2 kids from a prior marriage. And it also says again, and there seems like now as we keep reading, and as we go in the article, he drove to his late father's home, called his sister, said he'd done something bad. He wasn't going to go to jail. Basically, deputies tracked him down to his father's property. When they called for him to come out, he shot himself, killed himself like a huge pussy. Judge said that a relative told deputies that Kennedy had been beating Crystal for a while, that the sheriff's office has no record of any domestic violence calls or charges. Jason Kennedy had no criminal history. He's absolutely destroyed a family. When you go in, there's a beautiful Christmas tree. It ends up this way. So no history of any sort of violence, no history of any sort of domestic abuse. But again, if this had been going, first of all, this is just not something that happens in a vacuum. This type of behavior just doesn't happen. You don't go from being a happy, healthy, fun family to all of a sudden you're killing people and you're shooting your wife over a fucking football game. It just doesn't happen that way. So even though, people are saying, oh, abuse this, abuse that. Well, okay. Like relatives told deputies that Kenny was beating on her for a while. So where is the family in all this? Where are her parents? Where is her support system? Where are the people that are seeing this? I can't imagine a sibling of mine or a family member of mine being in a marriage I know that she's getting the shit beat out of her. And I'm just like, yeah, he's been doing that for a while. No intervention, da da da. It's crazy to me that this stuff is still happening. So So far, we've got a single mother. We don't know how she became a single mother, a stepfather with a drinking and a cocaine and violence issue, an entire family, or at least one family relative that knew he was bad news from the beginning, another relative that claims they knew that she was getting the shit kicked out of her by this guy. And yet nobody steps in to do anything. Like, where are the people? What is happening here? Crystal's family's leaning on each other as they learn the shock. So of her murder, Crystal's 13-year-old daughter is doing well in her recovery. It's a miracle the bullet missed every major thing. So apparently, I think it hit her in the arm and then hit her in the head after that. As for any abuse leading up to the tragedy, Stephanie said it's possible, but she wasn't aware of any. After they were married, I know she said he was drinking a lot more, but she said that he said he was going to stop and he would get help. Obviously, that didn't happen. When she went over to visit, he would sit outside in the shed playing games on his phone and smoking cigarettes. If there was any abuse happening, he must have scared her to the point not to say or do anything, because the type of person my sister was, she would have left at the first sight of trouble because she would protect her kids. But that's a question we'll never have answers to, which is absolutely true. So it's like, what happened to this extremely smart, extremely capable, extremely protective, extremely sharp woman that worked really hard and had the gumption to go from, and I don't mean to say this, this is being a dick, but like going from hostess to server, bought her house all on her own. Can we just be honest for a second? Can we just be honest? This is when this stuff isn't very helpful. When people are unwilling to have honest, tough conversations with one another, when people are completely unwilling to look at a situation and be honest about it, even if it might sever some sort of relationship or some sort of tie, maybe this would have saved her life. Maybe if this relative had stepped in, or maybe if this woman had stepped in, or some, I don't know. Maybe if this relative who claimed it was happening had stepped in and said something, this woman would still be alive. Maybe if somebody had checked up on them more, maybe if somebody had followed their gut, maybe if somebody recognized that this guy being a social retard and being a recluse that just wanted to drink beer and watch football and smoke cigarettes in his man cave shed wasn't really a good guy, wasn't really the kind of guy that this woman, if she's this hero, was, supposed to be with or should be with. 70 said she's angry, but she's so proud of Crystal and her nephew's actions that night. My sister died a hero for protecting her child and getting my nephew out of the house to make the 911 call. She did that. She saved their lives, and by doing so, my nephew saved his sister's life. Thank God the baby was untouched. So Crystal was the only one that died in the scenario. Both the three kids are alive. But as far as I'm concerned, 70 said, I'll finish the article. 70 says she's going to do her best to teach her 1-year-old niece all about who her mom was. I'll never let these kids forget with love and strength and courage she had for them. They'll always know she loved them, put them first. Well, did she? Because these are the questions we have to ask, man. I mean, are we not allowed to ask questions? These are the questions that people need to have answers to. And it's, everybody is just going to scroll past this article and they're going to say, oh my God, what a tragedy. Like, nobody could have seen this coming. But this is something, the reason this pisses me off so bad is because something like this is 100% completely avoidable. And it's because, he killed himself after Deb. Like Deb said that. Yeah, the cop showed up, shot him, all that kind of stuff. He was like, yeah, I'm not going to jail forever. And he called his sister. He's like, I'm never going to speak to you again after this because I'm going to be dead. This stuff is 100% avoidable. The reason it pisses me off so bad is because we're so unwilling just to tell people the truth. We're so unwilling to call this shit what it is. And until we stop glorifying and calling these single mother women heroes that can do no wrong and putting them on these pedestals, like, I want to know what happened between her and the first husband. I don't, to me, that's a very important part of the story. It's important to know what decisions she made to have a child with this guy at the age of 25. Why did it break down? Was he some random guy that she met at a fucking Chili's because she was a waitress? Was it just some husband? Like, we have no idea. Like, we just don't know where he is. And then she was a single mom for like 13 years, and this guy all of a sudden comes along. So getting close to menopause, maybe she wanted to have more kids. Maybe she wanted somebody to settle down and take care of her the rest of her life. Like, I don't know. I mean, her kids, she had 2 kids, right? She had a 13-year-old and a 12-year-old, and this guy comes along, they had a 1-year-old together. So now this woman is gone. She leaves behind 3 orphaned kids. Well, who knows if the original father is around or alive, if he's going to come back into the situation. There's nothing. And I'm sure the story will continue to develop, but all of this could have been avoided. One of the things that I think drives me the most nuts. And you guys, and I don't, this may or may not come up on tonight's Navigating Modern Dating, which we're changing the name of. You guys will see all this stuff next week. We've got some updates for you guys. Going to be calling the show a little bit different. We're not getting rid of the panel show. Me and TC are going to be doing a 2-man show called Navigating Modern Dating, where we specifically talk about dating and all this kind of stuff. And then the ladies panel is going to be called something different, but I digress. But we've had some single mothers on the podcast before, and I always like to know why there was a breakdown in that relationship. When a mother's like, yeah, like it didn't work out between me and my child's father. I just go, why not? And it's so often that the reasons are completely retarded and fucking innocuous. I remember this one woman, she was just like, yeah, we just didn't really get along that well. And we just want like different things. And he wanted me to stay at home and I wanted to work. And it's like, you deprived your kid of a household with 2 parents where statistically they will do the best in areas like school and grades. They're more likely to stay out of trouble in jail. They're less likely to get into teen pregnancies, be runaways. Like this whole idea of I would do anything for my kids and I would do anything for them. But it's like, you couldn't even stay with your kid's father for your children. And it's very, and you peel back these layers because these women love to say like, oh, he was abusive. I'm like, how? Well, he didn't let me spend money. What were you trying to spend money on? Oh, like clothes and shoes. I just didn't like it. He was financially abusive. And it's like this. So this guy told you no a few times and you just didn't like that. So you decided to deprive your child or your children of a father and a good household. And instead, with one decision, you now put them at risk for all of these other terrible things that could possibly happen to them, because we now know statistically that children that are raised in single mother households do objectively worse across the board when it comes to a ton of statistics in areas that matter that I just mentioned before. More likely to be runaways to get pregnant, more likely to go to jail, more likely to suffer abuse at the hands of stepfathers, more likely to get on psychotropic drugs like SSRIs and have depression and anxiety and have all these different disorders. It's not a guaranteed foregone conclusion, but it's much, much more likely. All because like you didn't get to spend the money you wanted, or all because this guy wanted to, he told you no a couple of times. And I know that I'm making light of it a little bit, but for the love of God, if you love your children and you want your children to have the best possible life and the best possible outcome, I don't see how you can reconcile those two things. I don't see how you can sit here and say, my children are my world. They absolutely come first before anything in the world, including me. And yet you will take them out of the situation that they are statistically most likely to succeed. And you will put them in the situation that they are statistically least likely to succeed. This shit drives me fucking nuts, guys. You couldn't tell already. Like, I'm fucking annoyed and pissed about this. And it's, well, Muff, women, what are you going to do, Muff? Women, fuck that shit. Like, I'm tired of pretending that women are these agency-less like children that are incapable of making their decisions. You either have agency and you're an adult and you can make decisions and you are able to choose things for your life. Like you can get a job and you can buy a house and you can do all these things, or you can't. You don't get to pick and have your choice of either one, or you don't get to have both. You don't get to sit here and say like, oh, well, I'm a strong, independent woman, but I can't be held accountable for my choices because I'm just a girl. It's insane that we've allowed it to get to this point. And you know what? Now this woman's dead. I don't, again, and I know that I don't have all the answers, and maybe I'll have to pay for this later, and maybe her parents both died or whatever happened. But it's peculiar to me that there's no mention of parents. There's no mention of the two children's original father or first husband, because it did say, I searched it, it's like this guy was her second husband. She'd been married once before. Why would a journalist not follow up with that? Why would a journalist not try to get in touch with them? Why would somebody not be asking those questions? Why would they not be trying to track this guy down and see if he's going to take care of his kids? Maybe he's not around either. But again, this is the problem I have with these kind of articles and this kind of shit, where it's like, it's incomplete. It's sensationalism. No one is going to learn anything from this story. The only thing that's coming out is this woman was a single mom, which means she's automatically a hero. And this alcoholic, cocaine addict, recluse, crazed football fan that had a she shed, killed her. And we're all going to go about our day. Like, nobody will learn anything from this. Nobody will see this and say, you know what? Maybe women should try to stick it out with the child's father first. Maybe women should be a lot more careful about the kind of guys that they bring into their household and meet their kids. Maybe women should have a strong father figure or a male role model around that literally make the decisions on who they should bring into their house and who they should date. But we're not allowed to have those conversations. We're not allowed to have those conversations because it's taboo. But how many women have to get killed? How many children have to get abused by a stepfather? How many times does this have to happen before we say, you know what? Like, this doesn't make any sense. Somebody's got to step in and do something. Beware of these kind of guys. Beware of the super fan. I mean, my God, like the fact that he was drunk and on drugs makes way more difference. I thought this guy was an obsessed 49ers fan that wanted to watch his team so bad that his wife said no, and then he killed her over it. I don't think that's really the case. I think that's quite reducing it. But there's just no reason that this had to happen. And now you got at least one kid that's going to grow up without her biological parents. All statistics point to that being a complete and total disaster. You've got two other kids that are adolescent, one that is going to have devastating trauma for the rest of her life, being shot by her stepfather who just killed her mother, and is going to have to be in therapy in for years to ever become a well-adjusted person, and that she'll never recover from this. And the boy, the 12-year-old boy, whose last words with his mother were, go get help and call 911, and then he heard a gunshot. So I, for fucking sake, hope that the original father is somehow involved and that we don't have 3 orphaned children. The whole thing just pisses you off, man, because you just see, the thing, because it's the things that we talk about. I don't take any pleasure or I'm not like vindicated where I'm like, see, we try to tell you guys to not just sleep around with any guy. We try to tell you women, don't be single mothers because it's not a hero thing and that they're lying to you saying that you should just leave that man because you're better off on your own. We don't tell you like, hey, yeah, just meet a guy at church. And despite him having maybe a cocaine addiction and being like drinking alcohol and being obsessed with sports, it's fine. He's just a normal guy. Like, it's no problem. He's just a little rough around the edges. And it's like all of these warning signs. And yet we catch shit for the things that we say. Like, we catch things. It's like, you guys are misogynist, or you just don't know, or how dare you? She was a hero, Moff. Like, I can't believe you're making this video. And it's like, no one's dancing on this woman's grave. What I'm saying is, this is the kind of thing that can happen when nobody tells a woman that she's being a fucking idiot, when she doesn't have a strong support system around to help and aid and make those decisions. It can end in disaster. This is an interesting. I think one aspect of the problem out of many today's women believe they're so special over any other women they can get any man to change for them, just like Quinn. Yeah, but like every woman says that. I made a video before about like how women want to kill Batman. Women grow up their whole lives being told they're special and they're better than everyone else and they're like amazing little princesses, and then like they realize that's not the case, or they never realize it's not the case. But like that's why intersexual competition between women is crazy. Like, it's insane. But every woman wants to be the woman. Every woman wants to be the woman that gets the guy that could have anybody but chooses her. But yes, women will do this on a very, very long timeline. Like, women will stay with guys for years, for decades, because she thinks that she can change him. And also she's, like, maybe she's afraid of being alone. I don't know what it is, maybe, but it's like, dude, she was single for like 13 years. She was unmarried for 13 years. Like, she got married at 25 and then she was 38. So, I mean, she was single for like 11 years. So what was it about this guy, right? Like, cause he went to church. I mean, we don't really know anything about him. other than like they were happy at first and in this honeymoon phase. And who knows? Again, we just don't know. Here's the conversations we're still not allowed to have. It's like maybe she drove this guy fucking insane. Maybe she was a nag and a freaking shrew, and maybe she was withholding sex, and maybe she just was using the guy as a meal ticket, and he needed to drink and do drugs and be in his shed and watch sports because it was the only reprieve that he got with two teenagers that he didn't father and a woman that who knows? I don't know anything about her personality. Who knows? We don't really know. All I know is we're not allowed to ask questions. And that's why that's why history will continue to repeat itself. When you're not allowed to ask questions, when you're so governed by your emotions and all you can focus on is the tragedy, and you're not allowed to unpack what could have possibly gone into this. And the only person they can interview or find to interview is her sister, who made sure to tell the cops, "Oh, I thought there was something off about him, but I didn't want to say anything." Like, fuck you. Is that that little self-serving comment? Oh yeah, I knew. Like even she was amazing. I could have told her he wasn't that great, but she didn't want to listen to me. Like, give me a fucking break. So, as it pertains to Moffcast, guys, like I'm gonna try to do more of just stuff that pops up, more current events and things that I find interesting or that I want to comment on as it pertains to this kind of stuff. It's gonna be less about the videos that I'll put out on Wednesday are going to be more about like the concepts. I did last week about ownership, about, fitness and masculinity and all of these things, because I don't want to double dip and repeat a lot of the content. So if you guys have things that, I don't love talking about politics. I don't love concerning myself with the world events. I think all of it's fake and gay. I think it's all bullshit. I think it's fucking dumb and retarded. But something like this that will catch my eye is something that I will, comment on, because I think that I think that this is a view and a take that most people wouldn't have. And I think that I want to ask questions. And I think that there's an opportunity here to talk about warning signs and red flags and things that could have been avoided if things had been caught or a number of people had been around. And this, unfortunately, is just another example that most people and most women will just ignore. It's going to be, yep, he was a cocaine addict. He was a drug addict. He was an alcoholic. He loved sports. She told him no. He was so toxically masculine that he just picked up a gun and shot her and her kid. I highly doubt that that is the full story. But unfortunately, that is likely the narrative that we are going to be spoon-fed and that we are going to be stuck with. Because we're not allowed to ask questions and we're not allowed to investigate because a woman was killed by a husband. And it's the same thing when we talk about domestic violence. It's like we're never allowed to ask what happened beforehand, before violence occurred. We're never allowed to ask what happened. It's such a bad thing. Like we've just said, hey, like violence against women is such a negative and a taboo thing that it doesn't matter what she does. There's never any excuse for it. And then when you have a protected class, when you have an entire group of people that has social immunity and can do literally no wrong no matter what they do, why would they act right? Why would they act a certain way? Why wouldn't they act in a way that they can do whatever they want? Like when you can act in impunity, who knows what you'll do? And guess what? Clearly, this guy took matters into his own hands. So I don't know. I don't know where this leaves us, but if you see this kind of stuff happening, if you've got women in your life that are making bad decisions, that are not choosing correctly, it's not your responsibility. Everybody's worried about their own stuff. I understand all that kind of stuff, but my God, man, this is why I think part of the problem of the world we live in is everybody is so worried about other shit that doesn't affect them. They're worried about ICE in Minnesota. They're worried about immigration. They're worried about Israel. They're worried about Iran. They're worried about whatever meme Trump posted today. First of all, any side can fucking get it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to just go after the liberals. I'll go after the fucking conservatives too, where it's like, you guys are just worried about the wrong shit when you got all this stuff going on in your backyard. What about your people? What about your circle? What about your family? When's the last time you checked in on them? Are you so worried about retarded political fucking bullshit and commentary, or the new TikTok dance trend, or what some dickhead said in the Instagram comments on a video you posted? Mind your circle, mind your people, because this could be your mom. This could be your wife. This could be your sister. This could be your daughter. That's all for me, man. Ask questions. I'll ask them. I don't give a fuck. I'll ask questions. I'm sure there's other people out there that are going to ask questions. I don't know if we're going to get the answers we want, but we're still going to ask questions. We probably won't get the answers we want. And when you ask questions that you're quote unquote not allowed to ask, think about why you're not allowed to ask them. What are they trying to hide? What's the narrative they're trying to push? Because there's always a slant. There's always a slant. I don't think this woman was a hero. She made a ton of bad decisions. She made one good decision, which is telling her kid to get the hell out of the house and go call the neighbors. Great. Well, whose fault was it that that guy was in the house in the first place? Whose fault was it that the guy had access to alcohol or even had drugs, or that she was in a house with a drug addicted alcoholic who clearly had an anger problem? Questions we're not allowed to ask, and the answers we'll never have. Anyway, that's it for me, guys. I'll see you back next week. Tune in about an hour and a half. Actually, I'll see you guys in an hour and a half. We're going to be doing our Navigating Modern Dating show tonight. Tune in. Same here, right on the Ancestral Masculinity channel. Make sure you click that notification bell. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It means a lot. Follow me on Instagram. It's where I'm posting a lot of stuff and reels. Again, I'm going to be posting a lot more stuff, long form vlogs, travel stuff. I've got a really cool vlog coming out, hopefully by the end of this month, about a big MMA training camp meetup that I did with about a dozen Brotherhood members back in December. It's just, like 6 hours of footage to go through to get it down to about 40 minutes. Going to be traveling again in February and going to be traveling again at the end of this month. I'm on the road a ton. And we're doing some really exciting stuff with both the Brotherhood and the Academy. So, if you've been following for a long time, if you like this kind of stuff, if you want to see more and you want to support so I can keep doing what I love to do, which is helping men and spreading the word of, masculine excellence, sign up, see how you get involved. And I'll see you guys in a bit.